The views and opinions expressed on The views and opinions expressed on the Tom Trento Show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other hosts or advertisers. Broadcasting to you on WNN 1470 AM and TrentoVision.tv from the underground command post deep in a hidden bunker in hostile territory. You're about to enter the Tom Trento Show.
We're on. Hi, everybody. Tom Trento here at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. for really a historic press conference that will take place that will help expose the Obama administration's failures on national security issues, in particular the shoot-down of Extortion 17 on August 6, 2011. And this has been phrased in light of yesterday's hearing in Congress on Benghazi as basically some whistleblowers coming together to tell the truth about what really happened on that night in the Wardak province in Afghanistan, August 6, 2011. And with me right now, before we start, we're going to give you a little bit of behind-the-scenes information. With me is the prime driver of putting all of this together. And I'm telling you, there are generals and admirals and SEALs and everything assembled here. I have never, Billy, seen a group of men with credentials and capabilities and proven as committed to the country as you assembled here. What's going on?
Well, Tom, you're right, and I'm just blessed. It's just so blessed that these men have come to honor us. Congressmen, congresswomen, generals, admirals, Air Force, Army, and Navy. And, Aaron.
Your son, Aaron.
Aaron would be so proud. But these men are here today to represent me, Karen, and the families who are here, only because Aaron died. Only because our sons died. Our sons were willing to give all for this republic. And today, we look for answers from a government who has failed to give answers, who has, at best, covered things up. And we don't know how serious it is. It may not be that serious. Please give us the answers. Or it may be far more serious than they're willing to say. We do know that there has been a cover-up. We do know that they refused to give us the right answers. We know that they gave us a debriefing. In the debriefing, told us a few things, but as Karen and I began to investigate, because our congressman at the time, Tom Rooney, was lied to in a classified meeting in Washington, D.C. by a high-ranking military official, Karen and I began to investigate. And as we investigated, the more questions that we tried to find answers to, the more questions we got. And Republic, that this government, this United States government, this administration in Washington, D.C., and high-ranking military officials allowed their bodies to be desecrated at the ramp ceremony at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan.
And you're gonna show that video later on?
We are going to show the video.
Okay,
and you will see.
Billy and everyone else has a lot to say. So start in how long, Mark? About 10 minutes or so? The press conference will start in 10 minutes, and obviously Aaron Carson Vaughn is Billy and Karen's son, SEAL Team 6, special operator, top-tier operator. He was killed August 6, 2011 in the shoot-down of Extortion 17. You got a couple of other families here.
Yes, sir. Three
other families.
And we also have other families who have told us that they were not able to make it today. Fred Benson, for one, his son Derek Benson, other families who have come out and said they support us. Our prayers are with you, and hopefully, you know, as this moves along, this won't be the last thing today. We'll get to hear from some of those other families.
And I saw Brigitte Gabriel came in here. Mm-hmm. Alan West is here. Michelle Bachmann, Congresswoman Bachmann, Congressman Louis Gohmert.
Yeah.
They just keep piling in at the National Press Club to take a stand against this administration's cover-up. It's a cover-up. I mean, you know, it's clear as could be. Here comes Louis Gohmert right now. We'll see if we can get him to step in and say hello with Boykin. So stay here for a second. Let's see if we can get these guys. General Jerry Boykin. How are you, General?
Tuck into your breast.
Tuck into my chest.
Yeah, listen, Tom, I think that this is a very important first step in getting some answers to some very difficult questions. One of which is, why didn't, on the day that this crash occurred, why didn't we suppress the known enemy positions there? Why didn't we take them out and protect that helicopter? One of my big concerns is the rules of engagement that have created quite a restrictive environment for our special operations people that literally don't allow them to win, that don't allow them to protect themselves adequately because of the way these rules of engagement have been crafted, so that you almost have to wait for a guy to shoot at you before you can return fire. And the third thing that I'm very concerned about is the fact that we had an imam praying over the bodies of American soldiers. Now that is an indicator that we don't know who the enemy is. We don't know the enemy's doctrine or his theology or what motivates him. And as I'm anxious to see this video today, because if in fact this imam was condemning those bodies to eternal hell as a result of being infidels, as an American, I'm outraged. As a soldier, I'm angry that this could be allowed to be done by our military leaders. So I'm anxious to hear what's said today.
I appreciate it, General. See you.
All right, bud.
All right, we'll be here. Congressman, how are you? Good to have you here. Thank you for joining in. We're doing a little pre-press conference, short statement. Got a lot of people watching.
Well,
why are you here?
Well, it was bad enough that we put people in harm's way without the helicopter they needed, without the cover they needed, and without providing. Apparently there may have been a C-130 gunship that could have taken out the killers before and after they killed, but that didn't happen. And it is just so outrageous that the best and brightest we had, the best trained, were put in such a situation. And of course, as I'm sure you know, when the families were briefed, and one of the fathers, one of our fallen SEAL team said, why didn't you just send in a drone if it were such a hot area? And the Admiral said, because we're trying to win their hearts and minds. If we're sending our military to try to win hearts and minds instead of defeat an enemy, we are completely messed up. But then to have seen the video when our American draped coffins are sitting there, and you know that at least some of them are Christian, and you have a Muslim imam come up and give the typical Muslim prayer, basically gloating over that anyone who challenges the warriors of Allah will be killed and go to hell and burn forever, and our military brings people in to do that. It's bad enough we didn't take proper care of such valued gifts as these SEAL team members and those helping, but then to add that kind of insult to injury is more than anyone should have to bear.
Well, Seth, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll see you afterwards, okay. That's Congressman Louis Gohmert from the state of Texas. We're about to begin the press conference right now.
Good morning. My name is Larry Klayman. I'm the founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. I'm representing Freedom Watch. I'm the general counsel as well, and I'm very pleased and honored to be among some distinguished clients and guests here today. What we're going to discuss is extremely important. We have here the families of fallen American servicemen, victims of our system, victims of our political establishment, who would rather protect radical Islamists than our own people. Our clients sitting to my left are Billy and Karen Vaughn. Their son Aaron was killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan, a Navy SEAL. Sitting next to them are their daughter, Tara, and her daughter, Annabelle. We then have Doug and Sean Hamburger with us today, and their son, Jeremy. They are part of Army Guardsmen, National Guardsmen force that also died in that fateful helicopter crash. Then we have Charles and Marianne Strange. Their son Michael died. Hamburger's son was named Patrick. And then we have Sid Dugan-Gara, also his Navy SEAL son died, John. We have distinguished people in the audience here today. We have military experts, James Simons, a retired Navy admiral. We have Paul Vallely, retired Army general. They will all give you their opinions. Jerry Boykin, who is an Army lieutenant general retired, and General Thomas McInerney, our general, retired as well, and two retired Navy SEALs, Larry Bailey and Ben Smith. Also in our front row today, we're very happy to have distinguished Congressman Michelle Bachmann, who's done such excellent work for the American people. We have Alan West, former congressman from Florida, now with Pajamas Television. We thank him very much for coming. We have Bridget Gabriel of ACT, who's been so courageous in fighting against radical Islam in this country. And we have a number of other people in the audience, and I want to thank them for being here. This is a very solemn occasion. It's an occasion that we wished never would have happened. But our Navy SEALs and Army and National Guardsmen, their identities were released initially by our President and Vice President unnecessarily. This was classified information. And as a result, as you'll hear, the fallen servicemen that we're talking about today literally had targets on their backs. In perhaps the biggest disaster since 9/11 as far as naval operations, special ops operations, these 4 sons and 26 others died in a helicopter crash over Afghanistan, a helicopter crash that didn't have to occur. In fact, they were sent into battle with an inadequate helicopter and an inadequate pilot. And it tells you something about the way this whole thing was structured, that there was an impending disaster with a target on the back of our servicemen. We also have a situation here today where our fighting men and women are not able to engage in preemptive or return fire because of political correctness towards Muslim outreach. That is an outrage in and of itself. Our servicemen have been handcuffed. We had a helicopter flight that the manifest of Afghanis, the Afghani security forces that were on that flight, were changed. We don't even know really who was on that flight, who might have compromised national security and given tips to the Taliban on who to shoot down. What you're going to see here today is a shocking display of how we honored our troops at the end of this tragedy. A funeral that was held in Kabul where you couldn't even mention the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, but yet a Muslim cleric gets up and damns these fallen heroes to hell as infidels. Unbelievable that our military brass would allow this to happen. We have middle-level military people running operations in Afghanistan and before that in Iraq who get promoted on the basis of how many sorties their servicemen fly. It's almost like Cub Scouts getting a badge so they can get promoted. Yet these people are sent into battle and not honored at their funeral adequately. This is a very, very serious situation. It hasn't been talked about. We're going to talk about it frankly. We're not going to pull any punches. We're not going to hold back on any opinions or words. Our experts here are going to validate what we're going to say, what our families are saying. This is not a press conference about me or Freedom Watch. It's a press conference about these families, and you're going to hear from them. We're going to have a succinct presentation, and you're going to have the ability to ask questions, and they will answer them at the end. We have entered into, in the last decade plus, wars that were poorly conceived and implemented. Our brave fighting servicemen and women have been sacrificed in the thousands, over 4,000 dead, tens of thousands maimed and wounded, and yet we've produced little to no result in these wars other than what a lot of people think are lost wars. It's time that we change our mentality. It's time we fight the wars to win. It's time that we protect our servicemen. You heard it straight from people who know what happened on that day and want answers. for the things they don't know what happened. Now we're going to hear from the military experts, people like Admiral James Lyons, who was commander of the Pacific Fleet, Paul Vallely, Army Major General, involved in counterterrorism, all distinguished people, Jerry Boykin, Thomas McInerney, both generals. Let's hear from Admiral Lyons first, and again, the facts will speak for themselves.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate you all coming this morning. First, let me say to the families, the unselfish service of their loved ones they represented and still represent the best of America. Now, it comes as no surprise that political correctness, regretfully, has infected every level of leadership command in our military today. It manifested itself in our counterinsurgency strategy with its restricted rules of engagement, which unnecessarily put the lives of our military forces at rest. It cost numerous lives and thousands with horrendous permanent injuries, all in the failed hope of winning the hearts and minds of a tribal society. This makes no sense. Why and who decided to put 25 elite SEAL Team 6 warriors in a single helicopter? That was my first question to myself when I heard about this tragedy. Sending them in with obviously a mission was compromised. As you all know, we had to vet our special operations plans, basically with all the Afghans, that we might as well have turned them over to the Taliban. They knew they were coming. We didn't provide the required suppression fire. That helicopter is made to transport troops and people. It's not made to conduct a special operation in a high-threat area. This was pure dereliction of duty. Somebody needs to be held accountable. This same dereliction of duty you see reflected in Benghazi today. Not to come to the aid of our diplomats and our personnel who are under attack is un-American. We know, based on well, let me go back a minute. Let me talk about the ROEs, which are mind-boggling when you go through and you examine what they are. You can't fire on the enemy, basically, unless he fires at you first. If you see the enemy walking away from an IED that he just implanted, you can't fire at him. This is nonsense. This cost thousands of lives and injuries. The same way you cannot fire into an area if civilians are present. The enemy knows our ROEs better than we do. They use it to their advantage. And when the press reports about an airstrike we conducted, the part that's left out is how many of the enemy, the Taliban, did they kill? That's never covered. We know, based on the latest Pew survey of Muslim countries throughout the world, that want Islamic law to be the governing law of their country. They do not want our concept of freedom and democracy. We know that 80%, more than 80% of the mosques in this country preach hatred of Jews and Christians, and promote jihad. This is conspiratorial. It borders on sedition. They should be closed down. But of course, that won't happen under this administration. In fact, under this administration, the Muslim Brotherhood has made some of its greatest advances. While Muslim Brotherhood had penetrated many of our agencies before the Obama administration, it certainly has been accelerated under this administration. And I am sure that many of those restricted rules of engagement had an input from the Muslim Brotherhood advisors. We know, for example, that 57 Muslim organizations wrote a letter to the National Security Advisor for the President, Mr. Brennan, complaining about the training materials that we were using to train our military to fight the enemy. That went to Mr. Brennan, who, as you know, is our current director of CIA, and as some of you know, is a convert to Islam, which never seems to get discussed. We know that based on that letter, all our training manuals were purged of any reference to Islam and terrorism and jihadists. The enemy was given a free pass. Not only was it purged, our trainers had to be, quote, re-educated, and some were disciplined as demanded by the group of 57 Muslim countries that signed that letter. Now, does this make any sense? This is crazy stuff. You know, a commander's first responsibility, which seems to have been forgotten along the way, is the safety of his men. I always felt that was paramount. I could take care of, once we assure that, the rest of it would fall in line. The mission would be accomplished. We would achieve our objectives. That seems to be lacking in today's guidance. One other point I want to make. You know, based on the Pew report, the concept of the Arab Spring, of freedom and democracy, makes absolutely no sense. In the same way, going back to the Bush administration, he was going to bring freedom and democracy to the Middle East. They don't want it. They do not want our concept. The Muslim Brotherhood creed is to destroy America from within by their own miserable hands. Their intent is to replace our Constitution with Sharia law. We can never let that happen. Change has to be forced on this administration. What I see happening under the Obama presidency is the ascendancy of the Muslim Brotherhood throughout the Middle East. We've dumped our traditional allies who were helping us on the global war on terror and now support Al-Qaeda-affiliated rebels, militias, with the end result that the Muslim Brotherhood takes control. How does this protect our freedoms and democracy? This is crazy and has to stop. I thank you all for being here.
I next want to introduce Army Major General Paul Vallely, a true hero, a true patriot, someone who has occupied positions of the highest esteem of the military and who's served this country greatly over the years. He's chairman of Stand Up America, Arms Inc., chairman of the Americans, and we welcome him today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Over the past 8 months has certainly changed my life. When at Stand Up America, our organization dedicated a lot of our resources to figure out what was going on, particularly in special operations, operational security, military tactics, strategy. And I had the opportunity to be asked to fly over to meet Charles Woods in Hawaii several months ago. And so I met Charles and his wife and family, and we discussed Ty Woods. Subsequent to that, I've had the opportunity to have General Boykin out at my home in Montana, opportunity to interface with Admiral Lyons and Tom McInerney and Larry Bailey and Brigitte, and God bless you, Alan, you as well. So we do talk, we do commiserate about what's going on, and we try to do what we can as retired military. But I want you to know we're here today because of you and your sons and the sacrifice that you gave. And Mike, when you say a dagger in the heart, I lost my son in 2004, and it's a dagger in the heart every day. So we're here for you. We've got to get the word out. We've got to do something to take back this country. We have to stand up. And Jerry, I remember sitting before dinner several months ago, and you asked me the question, how many of our retired officers, and even active officers, general officers, admirals, are really standing up for this country? He asked me the question, how many can you count? So I scratched my head, and I think I said maybe 5. And most of them are in this room right now. Where are they? Because the lead off in your talk, Billy, before Benghazi, was Extortion 17. A lost story in many ways, but thanks to you all for taking the initiatives to stand up as parents of lost sons and to have to go through a constant plethora of lies and deceptions and cover-ups of this government. I think it's very timely that we're here today when the Benghazi hearings are going on, because I think it'll bring together those bridges to Benghazi. One of those pillars in that bridge was Extortion 17. And you can go far back to Pat Tillman, you can go on now to Boston. There's pillars in this bridge of deception and lies, and we are going to expose them. I see Ben a lot of different feedbacks that we're getting when operational security was challenged with the video last, and all the great things that Larry Bailey has been doing in the whole thing about the SEALs and the release of all the information, providing a very difficult situation and even confidence in our SEALs out there and Special Operating Forces to operate today when they know our government basically is exposing things that we need to keep tight, we need to keep secret. I think, Billy and Karen, when you visited, one of the things that impacted on me was the fact that we had a senior flag officer call on Billy and Karen. I'm not going to mention his name, but basically was sent to their house in January to put a lid on them. Now, I don't know how many of you in here have felt that a lid's been put on you, not to talk, forget about it. What difference does it make? And that's been the attitude of this administration. But we're not going to take it anymore, because we are going to stand up. We're going to be accountable for our own government and what we do, because it's the future of America. That's what we're looking at here. We have got to change. We cannot depend to go down every day. Ace, you said a great thing this morning. I think we all see that. We turn on television and we're looking for something positive to happen. And it just seems to disintegrate each and every day more. Well, the stock market's up, it's strong, and so on. But there's a lot of falsities in all of this when we look behind the scenes of what's going on. I've had the opportunity to be in the Middle East twice in the last 8 months, meeting with Syrian opposition forces over there. And I had a young Syrian commander come up to me, and he said, you know, we don't understand democracy, but we do understand freedoms, and that's what we want. This was Syrian opposition, young man about 38 years old, who just came out of combat in Aleppo. Well, it's the same thing when you look at our troops and the sacrifices they made. And when Tom McInerney and I went to West Point together, he's a lot older than I am, by the way, so I have to take all my guidance from him. But duty, honor, and country. What is our duty? What is our honor? Our honor is being shed each and every day by lies and deception of senior people in government. And it's not only in the White House. It's in Congress, it's at the CIA, it's at the Department of Defense, it's at the State Department. I challenge somebody, and I think, Jerry, you and I even talked about this. What was the last diplomatic victory we had in America? I'm thinking back, it's when the wall went down. I can't think of another diplomatic victory we've had, but yet we fly people all over the world. And then again, when I go to Syria and they tell me, you know, we don't respect America anymore. Respect our people, but they don't respect our government because we don't take care of our friends. And that was a Syrian general. He said, you know, we're looking for help, but we're not getting any. So everything you heard about us helping the Free Syrian Army and opposition over there, it's not true. So it goes back to the whole thing. We're here together. We're here to present a message to the American people that we're tired of all the lies and deceptions, and we're going to stand up. And God bless you all, and God bless your families for doing what you're doing. We love you.
I want to introduce three-star General Tom McInerney, a great hero, another American hero, who's standing up for the American people. Thank you, Tom.
I often ask, where does a nation get such people? And I see their mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and nieces here. That's where we get them. It is the most impressive thing in my whole life to be associated with military people. I grew up in it. I spent 35 years in it. And I've continued to work on national security matters. our mothers and fathers just presented some very serious charges. And it's fundamentally, and Admiral Lyons and General Valley pointed it out, it is fundamentally our strategy in an Islamic society. They do not want our Jeffersonian democracy, but they do want our money. It is then the rules of engagement that we send our people to war with. And here we have Alan West, who in my world, and when I grew up, Alan West would have been given the Silver Star for the actions he took during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He is my hero. This nation doesn't go to war and put handcuffs on our people. And we have put handcuffs on our people. And Jerry is absolutely right. How many generals are standing up? We have a complicity that has been on a slide from when Secretary Gates started firing generals because they were not doing what he politically wanted, which was to come forth with the rules of engagement and the different things that have got us trapped in this strategy. And of course, that's why President Obama kept him. And we now have very senior people with going from this tragedy that you're listening to today that I was not familiar in great detail to where we are in Benghazi. A complicity not to go and rescue our people. And you saw it yesterday. From the very words of the person that was there, Ambassador Stevens to his DCM Hicks, we're under attack. And yet the next day, the day after, you have the Secretary of State and the President saying it was due to a video. Now that is complicity. And how about you now have two chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that have been complicit in that cover-up, one who did a report and the former chairman. You now have two CIA directors who are complicit in it, two secretaries of the state that are complicit in the cover-up, and two secretaries of defense. Never in the history of this republic have we seen this corruption and complicity, and as Admiral Lyons said, this dereliction of duty. This nation deserves more, and I put out the charge to every general and flag officer on active duty today. We didn't bring you up to live this way. This isn't being responsive to civilian leadership if it's complicit to cover-ups. You are violating the Constitution of the United States, and we expect more out of you, and these families deserve more. They have given their youth to this nation, and the nation deserves more. Thank you, and God bless you for what you're doing.
I next want to introduce Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, someone who has fought for this country, who believes in this country, and who's here with all of us to change this country and bring it back to the vision of our founding fathers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Billy and Karen, it's good to see you both again. To all of you families, I grieve with you. I think we all do, and you've paid a tremendous price. You know, on the 6th of June, 1944, as the sun came up, there were a lot of America's finest coming across those beaches at Normandy. But they were coming across to win a war. They were coming across to kill the Germans and run them back to Berlin. In my view, that was the last real war. That was the last time that America went to war with the concept of total war, because ever since then, we've done exactly what these courageous families have talked about today. we've allowed politics to become more important than the lives and the safety of those young men and women fighting in our battle space, and it has to stop. But there is something in here next to the loss of your sons that bothers me worse than anything else, and it is this imam praying over our fallen comrades. I'm incensed. There are two people in this room that have been fighting hard to get America to understand who the enemy is. That's Alan West and Brigitte Gabriel. They fought hard. And Americans are still ignoring them, and the fact that we would have responsible commanders allowing an imam to come and pray a standard, not a special prayer, right, Brigitte? A standard Islamic prayer over the bodies of our sons that have given the last full measure in defense of this constitutional republic. To have him come and condemn them to hell is an indicator that all of us, Brigitte and Alan, we have failed. And the others around us, we have failed to convince people of who the enemy is. And I want to say this, there is a constitutional responsibility when you take an oath that you are supposed to know the enemy. You are supposed to know his doctrine. You're supposed to know his tactics. You're supposed to know what motivates him. And the fact that we would do this is an indicator that there has been a deliberate plot in America, in our armed forces, not to allow the senior officers or anybody else to know who the enemy is or to understand how to fight them because we don't recognize the enemy. I am sorry for your loss, but I appreciate you being here today. God bless you.
Thank you, General. Thank you to all of us. Congressman West, would you like to say a few words? You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry, and thanks for everyone that is here, but most especially for these families that are here. And let me explain, I think a lot of people know what happened in my career in 2003. They know the decision that I made in 2003. And the bottom line, the reason why I, as a battalion commander, made that decision, because before we deployed, I made a commitment and I made a promise to each and every one of those family members of those soldiers that deployed in my battalion that I would do everything in my will, everything in my power to make sure that the individuals that left them would come back to them safe and secure. See, I can rest peacefully at night because I know that there are no parents from the 2nd Battalion, 20th Field Artillery that can look at me and say that I did not do everything to keep their family members safe. And I apologize, I am sorry for the loss of life that you have had to endure. But I thank you for the sacrifice that you have made, and we will continue to fight on your behalf. You know, Mr. Strange brought up an incredible point when he stood there before the Commander-in-Chief. If we had people that understood what it meant to get off of in a combat zone, in a raid, I think the decisions you would see happening and the actions would be different. If we had people that had ever been in an aircraft and hooked up and jumped out into the darkness, not knowing what would be waiting for them, that they would be making different decisions for our men and women. I can tell you, having been an artillery officer, you don't send anyone into a combat assault on an aircraft without first preparing that landing zone, by first suppressing any type of air defense that could be around it. I had also the privilege of sitting in on that classified briefing. That operation had been going on for 3.5 hours. To launch a Chinook helicopter into the night to go into an operation, a hot zone, that was something that was absolutely violates every single principle of employment and tactics for the United States military. Why that was done, I have no idea. I have been on many air operations, and I can tell you this. Even if a member of Congress is getting on an aircraft going down to Guantanamo Bay, if they change that member of Congress out, they go back and they update the manifest. Why were 7 individuals changed on the manifest of a combat assault mission and not updated? We need to find out about that. And the rules of engagement. Those of us who have ever been in a firefight know that within 2 to 3 seconds, someone starts to lose their life. And for us to tell our men and women in combat that they cannot fire upon people who are firing upon them, that is unconscionable. But I want to leave you with this simple point that I want you all to think about, and I hope the media will take these words and send it out to everyone. In this last election cycle, we had a president and a vice president. We had a candidate for president and vice president who had never served in the United States military. It was the first time in 77 years that that had happened. Now, I'll guarantee you, if we could once again have men and women who know what it's like to be on the receiving end of an AK-47, an RPG, or a PKM, then they would make better decisions. And perhaps our nation would not have more mothers and fathers that are sitting here as you are today. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Next, we're going to hear from former Navy SEAL Benjamin Smith. We'll talk from his personal experience.
I don't have much to say. Part of what makes us one of the best Spec Op fighting forces amongst all the rest of them is the mystique of who we are. We have found in the past, we can go to administration if you want, whatever, but the American people, even in the past year and a half, 2 years, have divulged basically who we are, what we do. We have movies, strategy, tactics, movements of everything is out there. Now you can get a Trident or any Spec Op shirt in a mall. What have we become? The people who do the dirty work, the tough stuff that you have to earn to go do, you can buy in a t-shirt. Part of this is also our society, as well as you have an administration that is just, they've never done anything as if their life depends on it. Like with the politicians, with the media, with a lot of the people. They've never had to struggle for anything. They've never had to get down in that dirt and fight for something. I mean, just to be here, I'm absolutely honored to know you guys, to help you guys get the word out. The things that have happened here, outside of the religious aspect of this, that is absolutely miserable. And there should be a lot of people in this country very angry, because we're only 200 years old and we supposedly have won all of our wars. Islam is 1,400 years old. They don't like us before we were even a breath or a thought. Do we have a chance? Are we not Sharia compliant already? And now you have an administration putting our people at risk. And now with beforehand foreknowledge of our people going in, is that not treason? Is that... I pray for our country. I just hope we wake up in due time to help try and save ourselves if we are not gone already. Thank you.
I also want to introduce former Navy SEAL Larry Bailey, who wants to say a few words.
Thank you. I don't have any prepared remarks, but I would like to say I agree with everything that everybody has said here today. I think that I know I have had my eyes open far wider than I ever thought I could have them open. I've learned things this morning thanks to the persuasive research that's been ongoing. I just couldn't believe, if anybody else had told me, I probably would have taken it with a grain of salt. But I see the families of people to whom the fallen mean the most, meant the most, and still do. You're telling the truth. That's the way it is. And we're dealing, as Special Operations speaks, we're dealing with even more lies by the administration. This administration might very well be called the cover-up administration. And I would ask you to get the word out about what happened in the shoot down of the helicopter and what happened in Benghazi. These two failures, or as they call it in the computer world these days, two fails, are so similar to each other that I think that America needs to stand up. And I wanted to say one thing. I'm a Southern Baptist. Southern Baptists don't like Muslims by and large as a theology. Thank you. And yet, my pastor, and I won't go into any detail, I go to a church in North Carolina, as redneck as it could be, as evangelical Christian as it can be. My pastor has a PhD, doctor of theology. He's a brilliant guy. He can preach a sermon with that, and he never even looks at notes. He can quote chapter and verse out of the Bible like Alan West can quote out of the Quran. And I have never heard him mention Islam, Mohammed, or Quran, not once. And I keep pinging him every now and then. I'll send him a nice little rejoinder. Hey, when are you going to start talking about this? Until our theological leaders start realizing that we are dealing with a theological enemy, that we're dealing with Satan himself, we're going to continue to lose. Thank you.
All right, the press conference just concluded. Pretty amazing. I mean, there was an array of Americans, probably 300-400 years of commitment and dedication between people like General Paul Vallely, 35 years, General Jerry Boykin, 36 years, the head of Delta Force, Admiral Lyons, the commander of the Pacific Fleet, General Tom McInerney. I mean, there's so many people here today. Captain Larry Bailey, former SEAL. So the people here were amazing, and the families, from the Vaughns to the Hamburgers to the Strange, just sharing their hearts. Even press people were in tears here at different points of the presentation. So we were very glad to bring this very critical and very special event. I think you heard a call for a congressional investigation. The Vaughns have been working on something like this for several years. In fact, three of the key members of Congress, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann from Minnesota, Congressman Louis Gohmert from Texas, they were here for the most part of this, and they had to go because they had votes back up on the Hill, which is 20 minutes from here by cab on a good day. And then former Congressman Alan West from my district in South Florida, and then where he was campaigning was from the Vaughns district. He's been very close to the Vaughns on this since it occurred August. You may have heard the date, August 5th and August 6th. Well, on the day of the shoot-down was August 5th in Afghanistan, but it was August 6th here. And so there was a confusion as to what the date is, with the time change. But we all refer to it in the States as August 6th, the day of the shoot-down 2011 of Extortion 17. By quick review, Extortion 17 was the call sign that evening for a non-special operations helicopter, just a bus. You heard the reference to a flying bus that was called for a quick reaction force. Some Rangers were fighting the Taliban down on the ground. They needed help. The call went out for the SEALs. Now the SEALs would fly in a bus. They would ride on tricycles to get to the fight. But the command has to have the foresight and be responsible when you have men who are trained at multi-million dollars apiece, who have been in 10-plus years, who are the tip of the spear, top-tier operators. You've got to have equipment. That's one of the key points today. You have to have the equipment that can get these top guys to the fight. If you put the Lone Ranger on a beat-up old donkey, his capabilities are going to be diminished, and that's what happened here. Guys that could have won the day were put into a piece of equipment that was unprepared to properly fly into the battle that evening. And a call has gone out from the families. Now, General Tom McInerney, how are you, sir?
Ben, how are you?
Good to see you. Very, very well. Post-press conference, what are your thoughts about the event?
I think it was very impressive. I was not familiar with all the details that I heard today. There are a lot of things going on in the U.S. military that these families are bringing up the problem that we have of people making decisions.
Well, Ben Smith, former Navy SEAL. All right. I mean, you have an interesting experience because you were on the front end of this press conference, being in theater fighting. Now you're on the back end listening to your brother's very tragic situation. Just share your human thoughts.
Where do I begin with this? I mean, first you just want justice for your guys. You want to know, like when you're out there, it's the guys next to you that you fight for. It's those guys who save your ass. It's those guys you will give your life for and you will kill for. You stand for a country. That's the rock we're standing on. And you'd like to think that everybody is on the same team. And it's just something you've known growing up as a kid. It's something you don't question. As American is American is American. But like a lot of things you're seeing now, you're seeing a drumbeat with this constant Islamization, political correctness towards you can't even say it. It's overseas contingency operations instead of the war on terror. I pose this question. Is it not the Crusades? That's how they see it. The Crusades never stopped in their eyes. In our eyes, this is just a war on terror or Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever. But if you look at Crusade, the Caliphate, the steps they need to take to come at us, those are all things being taken.
Good point.
And communism. Do you still think we won the Cold War when the president is self-admitted socialist and communist and the people he puts around him? It's a chessboard where they took the king and we're just the pawns on the board that are still there.
All right, we got to sign off right now, folks. What? We got to sign off right now. We're going by. Thanks, everybody, for staying with us. Send our link, TrentoVision.tv, on this amazing 3-hour broadcast to all your friends, all your lists. They got to watch this. This was a historic, pivotal meeting. See you. Bye-bye. Goodbye. With us, send our link, TrentoVision.tv, on this amazing 3-hour broadcast to all your friends, all your lists. They got to watch this. This was a historic, pivotal meeting. See you. Bye-bye. Goodbye.